work for Avalon Bay Communities out here in Charlotte, North Carolina. In the past about 2 years, I've been trying to put a little bit more focus and emphasis on networking and putting my name out there. And one of those channel ways is through LinkedIn. Fortunately, I was able to connect with Mr. Danila since our initial meeting about a month or so ago. I've been introduced to the multifamily matchmaking network and just been ingratiating myself among all these different people, these different positions that are being held. And there's a lot of information out there. So I figured I'd get started sooner than later.
Mr. Rhodes, you're next to my screen.
Hi, AJ, good to meet you. I'm Paul Rhodes, the Senior Manager of Maintenance Learning for Brookfield Residential, and also founder of Directional Maintenance Services. Been in the industry over 30 years, primarily of late smacking my gums and teaching maintenance skills and policy and process and procedures and all that sort of thing. Held every title on site, work for vendor side and work for the association side. So all around weirdo loudmouth maintenance guy. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Paul. Jason, you're next, sir. Jason Simpson.
Sir, can y'all hear me clearly?
Yep.
Fantastic. My name is Jason Simpson. I'm a maintenance supervisor for Embry down here in Midland, Texas, out here in the oil country. Been in the industry about pushing 4 years now. I serve on my board of directors for my local apartment association, as well as the executive committee for the Texas Apartment Association. Also a vendor by night. I own a little general contracting business on the side that I do as soon as I get off of work. I like to work, like to stay busy. I'm just here to listen to some of the actual masters and learn more and see how I can be more effective in everything that I do. Just happy to be here.
Welcome to the group, sir. Mike Mangum, you're next, sir. I think you're muted. At least I can't hear you. Can you all hear?
He said, come back to him.
Okay, that's cool. Leslie, want to say hi?
Morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Leslie. I work with HG Fenton Company and Director of Residential Operations, overseeing both maintenance and office operations. So,
welcome, Mike Malloy.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Mike Malloy. I'm with the NRP Group, Vice President of Facilities. We are developer, builder, and manager of multifamily, both market rate and affordable. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Mike. And Craig?
Thank you.
Hey, good morning or afternoon, everybody. Craig Bartholomew, currently Director of Training and Inspections at Net Vendor Maintenance on the vendor side. Also the owner of a small consulting company and training company here in the local Raleigh area. So happy to be here and be around. Continue to engage with the leaders here in multifamily.
Well, welcome, Craig. Mike M., are you ready to say hi?
I am. Can you hear me now? Yeah, it never fails with technology. What can I say? My name's Mike Mangum. I'm Director of Operations for Maintenance and Construction Services at WPM Real Estate Management. We're located on the East Coast in Maryland. And so I oversee about 150 communities between the multifamily and association space, and have a passion for all things maintenance, but primarily I'm heavily interested at the moment in moving the maintenance field forward and elevating it and creating a career path for all those service techs out there, kind of facilitate the path to build a future for them.
Super excited, Mike. Just sharing with you all right here. Mike and I had several conversations about how do we advance the industry. How do we make things better for us as the industry, and we attract talent from outside. So there'll be something that I'd like to touch on at some point before we close for the day. because we would love your feedback and your thoughts on those particular subjects. So I believe we touched on retention strategies, training initiatives last week, if I'm not mistaken. I want to go around the virtual table and start with advancement opportunities and career path development, engaging and retaining the on-site teams, and leadership development. And please tell me if if I'm saying too many things at once. Is it this too much, like to wait on at once, or should we just take like one thing at a time and just go around the table? What's your preference?
Think if we know where we're headed, let's start down the road and see where it takes us.
Okay. You want to go first, Craig?
Sure, why not? So, I mean, we talk about advancement opportunities in maintenance, right? And much more limited than they are in the office side, right? It seems to be anyway. Although a large number of companies are investing more in maintenance and therefore maintenance leadership, so those opportunities can be there for guys or gals. But I think to me, leadership development and advancement opportunities kind of merge together a little bit, right? We need to grow our people in more than just their manual skills, their hands-on skills. We need to develop some of the more soft skill stuff that enable guys to be able to take on those leadership roles when those opportunities come. And I think in the end, doing that is what builds the retention as companies begin to invest in those soft skills and in those leadership trainings for their people in the maintenance field. Then that makes people want to stick around. The other thing, and the last thing I'll say on that whole subject is, that it is necessary that the employee be engaged in their own development. Last company I worked for, 2 companies ago, they had really gotten into the abyss. Yeah, sorry, Paul. It goes that way sometimes. They had really started down the path of having opportunities for people, but you needing to own the opportunity. So they would give you the information, but you had to act on it. It's kind of the way I used to say it, or used to tell my guys when I was talking to guys, especially guys that were complaining about not being able to move up. And the whole thing is always about, how are you showing up to work every day? And are you showing up ready or able or willing to do the next job? If you show up with the attitude of, hey, you pay me to be a tech and I'm going to be a tech and I'm never doing anything more than being a tech, you'll stay a tech for the rest of your life. If you show up as a tech ready to be a supervisor and you start trying to do that supervisor's job and you try and engage in some of that extra stuff, then those opportunities are when they present themselves. So I think as companies are willing to give the training, retention moves up. And as employees are willing to invest in their own advancement, then they advance.
Now, Craig, any factual stories, right, from your previous experience, things that really work in your previous experience, like while you work for operators, that you like to share?
I mean, I can say that I've had that experience in training technicians over the years. I've got 33 years, and I count a privilege to hire people who are at least as smart as me or smarter and watch where they go. Right now, I can count 4 of my previous people that started with me as painters or technicians that are currently sitting in directors' roles. And the advice that I gave them and always continue to give people is, what are you showing up every day to do? And that's, I think, probably the most important thing is, what are you showing up every day to do? Are you showing up for your tickets and that's it? Or are you showing up to grow? And to me, the proof's in the pudding. Where are the people that you hired, that you mentored? Are they where they started, or have they moved on, advanced past? I can think of 2 guys that worked for me that became directors before I did. And you know what? More power to them. That's where the goal is, and that's where we want to grow people to.
That's fantastic. I couldn't agree more. Mike Malloy, would you like to go next, sir?
Um, I honestly, this is one of the bigger challenges, obviously, that we're dealing with as well. I think that I've joined this call a couple of times, and it's a common conversation that others are having. I think there's some really good things that are happening in terms of training that's happening, but I would agree with the previous comments that you do have to be willing to put in the effort and the time. One of the challenges we have is we have these trainings, or we'll schedule these trainings, and we'll either assign them or get others to sign up for them, and if they don't attend them, or they're too busy, or whatever the reason is, I feel like there are a lot of people that are looking for the opportunity, the promotion, the pay increase, or the title change, who aren't working, or who aren't willing to put in the time and effort. And eventually those people get weeded out of the system. But yeah, I think engagement is really important. I think training is really important, and I think it's a challenge that we're all having to work through. And I'm just interested to sit and listen to others' perspectives. For the maintenance supervisors or techs that are on this call, I think it's a great initiative that you're taking, trying to network with these associates, and I hope that you can learn. I mean, I think there is the potential is so great in this industry to advance, but there's no substitution for hard work and commitment. I think I applaud you guys. I applaud those guys for joining, and hopefully we can continue to grow this group.
Yeah, I love the fact that everybody agreed that we should open up to individuals that show initiative, show that they have the drive, the interest. They take time out of a busy day to be here with us, just to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So I applaud you both, and hopefully we could bring more talented individuals like you. And when we go around the table, I'd like to give you a few minutes to to just kind of get your take of what you see from where you are today, right, on those aspects: advancement opportunities, career path development, engaging and retaining team members, and then leadership development. Leslie, do you want to go next?
Yes, I would agree with everything that's being said, where I can maybe add some value of as we lead the maintenance. Couple of things that's important, right? The cross training is so important to really level up team members to really understand what another team member may do, or different roles and responsibilities. And really, how do we continue to retain that team members is by growing their competencies. Really, one thing that really it helps a lot is having a really organic one-on-one conversations, and really having those challenging questions, and asking the team member, what do you see yourself doing next, or highlighting that close shadowing of partnership. As a leader, we have a responsibility to have really touching conversations, as well, giving that feedback on the spot. And as we lead others, or have leaders leading other leaders, or different technicians and custodians, and through the whole entire career path, is really doing the show me hows. We have to allow the time, right? We need to make the time of individuals to spend that quality time. When we invest the time in training others, and really supporting them in doing that show me hows, and circling back, and really identifying any missed gaps, anything they might have missed to true themselves up to be a leader, it's very, very important. That's what I'll add to the conversation. You're muted, Adrian.
Of course. If it doesn't happen at least 3 times during one call, I didn't do it right. So I was trying to say, Leslie, that I'm very excited to have you here. for many reasons, right? Because, we don't get, enough female maintenance professionals, like facilities professionals in our industry, and leaders too, like you. And secondly, you're bringing a very unique perspective, working for a smaller group that does things a little different that you would do on a larger scale. I think that there's a lot of value in that. There's certain things that could definitely be applied in larger organizations, and I would love for you to to lead one of our meetings in the future if you're interested.
I'll be more than happy to. Yeah, my passion is maintenance, right? I started as a custodian, many years ago, and that's where it's just my passion. Really seeing maintenance, giving them maintenance to have an opportunity to have a career that really generates a great lifestyle for themselves and for their family. So it's really one of my passions. So definitely, so.
Thank you.
And one of the things, not to cut, but one of the things that's so important that I have found that, to earn maintenance respect, a lot of times where you get the respect is them knowing that you were in it, right? At one time, at one point of, our careers as leaders in the role that we're in, I think that respect is really important. And if we haven't been in it, how do we understand and really understand what they do day in and day out? If you can blend that, I think it's a win-win, to retain your employees and to keep that motivation of growth.
Mr. Rhodes.
Howdy. My question actually kind of goes back and summarizes all of it, but it begins with what Craig said of it has to be a personal choice. What are you showing up for? I think was how you worded it, Craig. And my question, or the question that generates, is if we're looking for our maintenance technicians to show up for beyond their current position, what is the beyond that we want to promote? In other words, what, and not, AJ, please turn off your camera or do it. I'm about, fair warning, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Mainly because you're the technician in the room. What does your next step look like? What, from a technician's view, I'm old fart view. From a technician view, what does your next step look like? And I'm asking from a standpoint of, if we're saying that we're looking for you to show up for that next step, what is the next step? And then we can kind of figure out what your management company would do to help facilitate that.
If I were to respond to that question, I think that the things that I would ask are, what are the biggest issues, or what are the biggest obstacles that come into play when we're talking about maintenance functions and the things that we're trying to do and take care of. I understand that from my own perspective, working in my own company, that delegation is a very big thing. Being able to being able to not have one person do everything, but to be able to spread out these responsibilities so that they get followed up on at an appropriate time frame, get taken care of. And so I believe that first identifying exactly what it is that is top priority and needs to be taken care of, and finding a way to align that with the skill sets of the people that you work with, assigning things appropriately, delegating appropriately. I think that those questions are probably where you begin. And then according to what every organization's specifications are, you probably proceed from there.
That's interesting, because I was actually expecting a response of, and I'm wondering if one of the disconnect is our management companies think along the ways that I am, of the next step for a maintenance technician is either a bigger property or a bigger job title. And your response was a soft skills, to learn more about delegation. And be careful, AJ, you are now speaking Adrian's language directly,
Right.
like going there.
Right.
But based on your answer, then the way that your management company and as an industry would help a technician, if we extrapolate it farther out, is leadership skills training. And then to kind of tie in Leslie with the intercompany, that would mean that your management company would need to give you opportunities to delegate and then feedback on how successful or unsuccessful and changes needed in order to develop that.
That's
So
exactly true.
that does. Now the next question, I think, and this is probably one for Mike's and Leslie being in the industry, is that something that management companies are willing to do without taking it out? And no, I don't want to set up your management companies. And I realize asking that as a question is a potential setup for some bad marketing or bad statement. But the reality is our industry set up to provide those opportunities? And do we have people in leadership roles that can actually provide that feedback to allow our technicians like AJ with a stated direction they're interested in going? Is our industry set up to provide that level of feedback and that level of direction?
I I know that question probably wasn't to me, but I do just want to say that in what you're saying, I do think that we are more equipped to provide the property or the position more so than the skills training. Because I've seen it before. I can go from an old property to a much newer and more efficient property, but that doesn't necessarily affect my skills in terms of how I organize things and how I work. Um, so I truly believe that the skills is where you attack first. And then that technician can go anywhere. They can go forward in their progression as a technician to a manager, or they can make lateral movements. It just depends on what their desire is.
And just to be clear, are you, when you say you think skills are first, are those hard skills like turning a wrench skills, or skills like what you mentioned, delegation and leadership and the more soft, to take very broad brushstrokes? Turning a wrench is hard skills and interpersonal is soft skills.
I
Which
would
one
say
of those are you?
I would say they're both, sorry to interrupt you. I would
No.
say that they're both equally important because even me being on this call right now, just getting out the word sometimes can be difficult. And asking technicians to take on that type of role, they may not be prepared or equipped to do that in their everyday jobs, because this is one call, but there are many, many moments that you run into where you may not be able to or have the skills to work through or even think through something that you're physically working on. So you have to be able to have, I would say, a level enough head to work through these things and have the determination to continue to work through them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a that kind of shows the importance of what Craig was referencing, of each individual. You have to show up as well. It can't just be a corporate culture thing. It does come down to an individual having the desire to push through. Uh, I don't know that my manager, I don't know that, yeah, I don't know that my management company is set currently to provide that second half. Meaning, if somebody as an individual wants to go forward, we're working on developing those, but I don't know that we're there to actually be able to provide those at this time. But that is an interesting take for future development.
Well, I would agree. I don't even think our company is there yet, right? Because it's an additional layer of training that is important. You have your hard skills, that's turning the units, doing the ins and outs of whatever the day-to-day operations of the maintenance world. And as maintenance develop and grow and they position themselves and, from a maintenance tech to a senior tech to a maintenance manager, that competency of navigating tough conversations with residents, right? That soft skill, the better planning, right? At times, because a senior tech is so good at managing the day-to-day work, right? When they get to that leadership role, I think that's the gap where we miss of not providing them the additional layer of training that our industry doesn't have, right? It has to be relatable. You're having maintenance technicians that are not as, through PI, right? Through our PI that individuals take. Maintenance are not your talkative team members, right? They're not the social. They become social when that safe environment is in their own realm, but they're not out there and trying to go to big events and social. Every time we have a maintenance, gathering, a company gathering, you see maintenance tailored to one section of the room, and then all the mingling office people tangled, right? So there is an opportunity, I think, in our industry to cater training that levels up our technicians and our leaders with the soft skills they really need: conflict resolution for the customers, better planning to execute, understanding what comes priority, because there's bucket A, bucket B, and bucket C. Bucket A is your work orders, bucket C is your turns. Those always get done. And then your bucket C is your some preventive maintenance, but the overall preservation of your community, it's missed. So how do you level up that training so team members can plan better, execute, and level up their communication and confidence of writing, right? Writing skill is also a very area, that I think team members that I see, that I partner with team members to really level up their writing when they're communicating to upper management, removing those layers. ChatGPT, I think, has been coming great, but because a lot of people are using it to communicate. But I think that's my insight from what I have.
Michael M., would you like to weigh in on this topic, sir?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I'm really excited just to be hearing this conversation, and that this conversation is actually happening because it's overdue. And this is where it starts, right? To see some type of change in the industry. So before I got on this call, I was actually at our local NAA affiliate this morning on a maintenance panel, and I started with invest in yourself. It's the most important investment you will ever make, right? And these are new apprentices coming into the industry, right, with just a few months of training. So I agree with everything that's being said. I have a slightly different take on how we get there, in the sense of, I agree that soft skills are 1,000% critical, especially the further up you go in leadership. You need to understand the technical component. But we have to have a career path, right? Otherwise, we're left with, so I think we have to start with looking at the career path. Otherwise you have all this talent and nowhere to put it. So what happens? They leave, right? They leave the industry, they go elsewhere. If you look at the apprenticeships in IBU, right? International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, right? It's typically a 5-year program, and you're an apprentice and you work your way up into a journeyman. What keeps them there is not only the investment in themselves, but they know they check these boxes year after year. Year 2, I'm making this wage. Year 3, I'm making this wage. I complete the courses, right? I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then I see the long-term picture of, after 5 years, I'm going to be a journeyman, right? And I'm going to have that certification and I can go to work anywhere. So I think that is a big miss that we don't have as an industry, that it's just a job, right? For some of us, we spin it into a career, right? But I think the fact that we're not selling that message, that this can be a career, that it can be a very lucrative career, and there's really no ceiling on it, right? That you can go from starting on site and over time work your way up through the ranks to become director, executive level. Those stories are out there, okay? I think those stories are evident just on this call, yeah. So, I think that that is a message that we're not clearly communicating, right? Not only inside the industry, but also outside, right? To try to bring people in that this is a career and there's a career path. And what we have is kind of a disjointed approach where every management organization is taking their own approach, trying to figure it out, right? We're trying to do the same thing over here, right? We've got learning concepts, we've got training. We're trying to focus on leadership and soft skills, but we just don't have it all together in like one neat package to where and we're not close to that, right? As an industry, I get that. But I think, again, having these conversations is critical to take the next step. And identifying that career path, which ties into, promotions, pay scales, designations, nationally recognized designations for service, I think are all part of it. And then once we have that, we're able to really focus on training and talent and have a place to put the associates as they develop leadership skills, soft skills, technical training, etc. There is a path, because otherwise they look for the exit ramp off. It's a dead end. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can make more doing this. And so that's kind of my take on it, just from a high level and like what I'm dealing with and what I'm seeing. But again, just I think having this conversation is a critical first step to get to where we need to go.
Paul, you had your hand up, sir.
Yeah, and to that point, Mike, I don't know if everyone's aware, TAA, the Texas Apartment Association, just published a guide that they partnered with Mark Kukro to produce on job descriptions, creating a job description and how you create a job description. To your point, developing that career path is important and needed, but the challenge, I think, also to something else you alluded to, is that every management company has their own view of it. So it's interesting to me that TAA published one guide on how to develop one. My guess is that Becca and the people over there at TAA Education Foundation are taking that first step to try and like standardize job description or title. I think they want to go a little bit more in depth than the electrical union, apprenticeship journeyman path. I mean, there's a lot of guessing there, but to your point, I just wanted everybody to know TAA has published it, and it's free, it's downloadable. And if you have problems with the website, shoot me an email. I'll send you the copy. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I have a copy too.
Okay.
I'll be more than happy to circulate it. I also probably want to mention a couple of other resources, stuff that I think some here and others that are not today on call might be interested in, like joining. There's an amazing mentor matchmaking group that Tara Samuels is leading. It's not specific to maintenance, but they actually need individuals with backgrounds like ours to join, as mentors, as mentees. There's a lot of good that happens out there with Tara's group. And there's also a very high level leadership group that Patrick Antrim from Phoenix is leading. It's kind of the same situation. They have hundreds of thousands of units. I think they're close to 1 million units managed between all the participants right there, all the leaders. But we're needing more leaders that are coming from the facilities side of business, right? Things are not quite. I'm actually the only person that represents in a way facilities. So we would like for more of you to join us if possible. I'm gonna make sure that I'll put the 2 links in my next email, and I'm attaching the document that Mark Kukro and TAA has produced. So I'm gonna make sure that goes out with the invite and with a recap for the current meeting, with the recording and everything. With this being said, Mike M, I'd like to go back to you for a little bit, and I'd like to give you some time to elaborate on the conversations we had about national level certifications. Like, what are some thoughts and what would you like to share with the group, and just kind of like kickstart this conversation, because I think it's so important that, when you have ARM, when you have CAM, when you have CAPS designations, and for maintenance, you only have a maintenance technician certification. Of course, there's an argument that, it's KMT leadership that's kind of like makes up for not having one for service managers. I always argue that, if you really want to make it that way, just give it a title too. Titles do matter, right? Make it certified service manager, not certified technician leadership, right? Like, why do we not want to have someone that's like certified service manager? Are we afraid of that? So I like to give it back to you, Mike, so you could share some thoughts, and just kind of I want to start this conversation around the virtual table here.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. So I think that, as we're talking about career paths with inside in the industry, we're looking at, bringing service to the table, right? And service is generally, a service manager could be in charge of a multi-million-dollar asset, anywhere from $10 million to $70 million, to owning an entire block of real estate in a metropolitan city. So, however, they don't have necessarily always a seat at the table with the property manager. But service is where you make more decisions related to service and saving money that affects your budget anywhere else. If you look at a P&L statement, you look at an operation statement, more items affect service and maintenance than anything else outside of payroll. So, and even there, you likely have more maintenance technicians than you do other positions, leasing agents, managers, etc. So, again, the career path, not having the next step designation, just, I come into the industry, I become a certified apartments maintenance technician. I move up to a service manager, but then I'm stuck there. You're not going to go to the CPM. You're not going to go to an ARM necessarily. Sometimes Adrian's got to swing over to CAPS for the certified apartment portfolio supervisor, but there really should be a designation for the trained maintenance professionals that are service managers, right? It ties into the career path. I think it leads down the road of, this is a career, right? Not just a job. And it gives them something to shoot for. And this wouldn't be a service manager designation, in my mind, isn't necessarily a technical skills training as much as it's the leadership, contract negotiation, communication, managing and supervising employees. It's all the other pieces to the puzzle that we're missing. And it's just that it's that next level, thinking like an owner, right? Starting to look at financial statements, that to give the recognition to these service managers. There are service managers out there all day long that are already doing these things, right? And I think it's my opinion that service should have a seat at that table with those designations nationally. I think it ties into the career path. I think it helps build the pipeline for the future of the future maintenance technicians, to say that, oh, you got your CAMT, here's something else to take and work towards. And I think to Paul's point about industry standards and how everyone's doing their own thing, it's a way a lot of organizations now will say, well, CAMT preferred, or no, you have to have it, right? Or you have to have your CFC. If you don't have your CFC, we're not even going to hire you. So I think it's a way to take and set a bar, set a standard, to know what you're getting in an interview, or, someone's went through this training, they've had this training. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I'd be interested in the roundtable to see what everyone else thinks. And the last piece I would add to think about is, this is something that ultimately I think, and Adrian and I discussed this, that has to be grassroots and local, right? That starts at your local affiliate. That starts in a pilot program, right? That we start doing it to where at some point there's no choice that NAA jumps on board, or that there's a designation that takes place, because it's already being pushed, and it is being pushed in certain areas. And I think the next step is getting more leaders like the ones on this call behind it. But I'd certainly be, very anxious to hear everyone else's take on that and thoughts about it.
Oh,
Mike,
All
quick
right,
question for you. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead, Leslie. Go ahead.
No, a quick question, Mike, for you. What do you think the ground, to get this, to get the vision that you have, what do you think the obstacles are? Like, I'm curious to hear what you see your
Yeah.
obstacles are, because
Yeah.
I love everything you said.
Yeah.
And I just, I see many obstacles in our industry. We're just not there yet. And how do we make this much more important, right? At the level that you're highlighting.
No, that's a great question. And I'm not delusional about, right, the obstacles, right? We're not close to this. Step one is having the conversation we're having today with national leaders on the call that are in charge of tens and millions and billions even dollars worth of real estate. Having those conversations is the starting place. Having those conversations on LinkedIn to get exposure, I think, and kind of building pressure that way. There's a huge awareness issue, right? So, most people aren't aware that they don't think about this, right? They know, oh, we got a problem. We got a recruiting problem. We have a staffing problem. We can't hire someone. We'll pay you more money. We'll give you an extra day off, all these things, but they're missing the whole core of the issue. And it's an industry issue in maintenance with the skills gap, and with the career path. And again, in my opinion, so I think the obstacles are too many to list, right? But it starts with having these conversations, and this is a multi-year endeavor for the industry. And, kind of checking boxes, flushing out the ideas, what works, what doesn't work, and piloting programs is where it would start in my mind, to then say, okay, Paul over here did this, it worked, but this didn't work. Someone over here did this works, but not so much. And ultimately we come back together with a more finalized version of what the finished product looks like. Same story with centralized maintenance, right? No one size fits all. And we don't have a perfect solution that fits in a box for it. But again, having those conversations and the experiences is where it all starts.
Yeah, I would agree. The majority of my managers have the CAMT.
Mm-hmm.
And two of my guys are going to teach it this year. I've taught the CAMT. However, it's a title, because they go through the CAMT and they're like, well, we didn't really learn anything, but it's the title. So they go through the whole process. Some guys go through the training and don't even take the test because they're like, the title means something, but it's not, I didn't learn anything. So they don't see the value. So I agree. So just sharing.
Well, and where that goes in, and full disclosure, I wrote CAMT. In 2015, I was with NAA. I was their national maintenance instructor, and we did a full rewrite, start at ground zero. And Leslie, you're right. You're correct. Most people who take CAMT, it is not this is brand new skills, for a myriad of reasons, most of which Mike alluded to. On the reasons or the challenges are legion. They're huge. Right now, just to put a promo or a plug, we meaning the industry, is probably the closest we have ever been to moving what you're talking about, Mr. Magnum. Craig Bartholomew and I, 3 days ago, last week, were in DC at Advocate, which is where all the National Apartment Association meetings and committees meet. The Education Institute had a meeting for CAMT, the Certificate for Apartment Maintenance Technician rewrite, which is about to kick off, meaning by the end of 2024. And understand timetables in the association world, when they say about to start, that means you're a year away from having something that actually begins getting motion or movement.
Large boat, big rudder.
Yeah, yeah, large boat, big rudder, and it takes forever. I mean, the CAMT program, the program in and of itself started in 1968 in Dallas, Texas, and is fundamentally the same program that was started then. Fundamentally, it's the same process. And it took forever to get to national level. And to this day, it is the only certificate program for all of multifamily that carries ANSI accreditation. And that is huge in the association world. But the problem is it's not known, marketed, managed at the site level or the management company level. It's actually a really big thing that means nothing to the people who get it because it's not talked about or discussed what all that means. All of that goes in, or all of that's kind of background to Mike, exactly what you're saying. The very first thing, if you're looking to change something at a national level, you mentioned it, get involved. Right now, NAA, the National Apartment Association Education Institute, is looking for people to help. And by that, you sign up, you sign a non-disclosure agreement to talk about the programs, and it's completely understood. You don't talk about what's going on at your management company, no company secrets or anything like that. But NAA desperately needs people like everyone here and everyone, Adrian, who's been on your calls, who will voluntarily read, comment, review, update, edit, take pictures. Craig's got a bunch of pictures in the stuff. Maybe do videos, maybe show equipment that they have. They need people. That's both at the national level or, Mike, to your point, at the local level. All of that needs input. All of that needs people. We, meaning maintenance industry. And by the way, this includes technicians. AJ, you're not exempt. This is everybody need NAA. To that end, there is discussions about a supervisor certification. That's where the CAMT plus L came from, was back in 2015. Yeah, 2015, when we did the last major rewrite of CAMT, we had a deep discussion of what is this certificate for? And it's not for what is offered currently. CAMT is the technician level. So we pulled out from the credential everything to do with leading people, writing scopes, liability, tough conversations, delegation, all of those things. And that got bundled into the e-learning program, CAMT plus L, that I agree with you. It's just there. And arguably in today's post-COVID world, I don't even think CAMT plus L is relevant as a whole. So the quick summary is, if we want to see something change right now, NAA is the most open they have ever been to adjusting that rudder. Craig, to your point, big ship, big rudder. Right now, they're looking to adjust it, but NAA is not maintenance people. Most of them have never plunged a toilet. They don't understand the 2 o'clock in the morning air conditioning call. So they need our input. And it's got to be more than just Craig and I in the room, because I think all total it was Craig, me, Chris Karamonica. Yeah, I think those were the only ones in the room that have actually done the job. Everybody else was administrative or office people. And I do know from experience, trying to get somebody with experience that will volunteer to review and even just read a book and say thumbs up, thumbs down. It's worse than pulling teeth to get somebody to do that. And in order for changes or adjustments to be made, that's got to happen. So there's the call. I will now climb back off my soapbox and say thank you, Adrian.
No, Paul, amazing feedback. Thank you. Amazing insights. I'd like to not cut this conversation off here, right? I'd like to take you over to our next meeting, which, by the way, I looked at the calendar. In 3 weeks' time, hopefully everybody that's here on a call could join us. That's gonna be April 10. I do want to go to Jason because he's been like an observer right there, driving like not on camera, which is no issue. Jason, any thoughts on what has been discussed today? Advancement opportunities, engaging and retaining on-site teams, leadership development. Maybe he's tied up. Maybe he's not available to speak. He's just like listening to us. We're like 3 minutes to the top of the hour. I'd like to go around the room and just kind of get your take on what we should be looking for next as far as topics. We still have plenty of topics that we kind of like put together at the very first meeting. This is our third meeting, so we still have plenty, but I like to get your feedback on what would you like to see being talked about, discussed during our meetings in the next meeting and the ones after that. So AJ, I'm starting with you. You're right next to me on the screen. So what would you like to hear about in the next meetings? What topics?
I think in the next meeting, I'd probably like to hear about what are some of the markers or signs that management and organizations are looking for when you're talking about advancing and moving forward, because it's one thing for me to know the information and for me to use it and utilize it. It's another thing for me to pass this sort of information on and be able to share it through whatever platforms that I have access to. So being able to clearly identify some of these markers and some of these things that are strong indications of interest in the multifamily industry, if we can identify some of those things, and I think that would aid in our mission to kind of market to people and bring people in to aid this and better help this mission.
Appreciate it. Leslie, you want to go next?
I mean, I think for me, it's more the recruiting. So maybe we could bring the topics, but it's already on the agenda.
It's actually the next point on the agenda, recruiting and hiring. So that's great timing, right? Not to say that we can tweak things around. Mike Malloy, what other topics that you see as hot topics for us to debate, to discuss here in our group?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm interested in the recruiting piece. I found what Paul was talking about really interesting, and I kind of want to follow up on some of those things. Like, I do think that the education and creating the right type of education, great type of training, is really important. Not necessarily a topic for next time, but I think that that's really important. I don't know. I think it's nothing comes to mind right now, but maybe it's an opportunity that we kind of you maybe send out an email to the group and poll them or ask some questions, or Adrian, I see a lot of the polls that you create like on LinkedIn, right? And I think those are great questions, and maybe it's like we take one of those and make it a topic. I don't know. There's a lot of things about engagement and pay and all of that. Like, I don't know. I think if people can come to these calls willing to be transparent, open, and just be, talk about the challenges that they're having, I think it makes it all the more impactful.
No, I totally agree. And this is the whole point, right? Transparency. That's the reason why we record the calls, because we wanna make those calls available to those that can join us and to the entire world. Because it's not like we're sharing like super secret information. It's just thoughts and feedback from those that are doing it day in and day out, and they're important. Like this is how we move, our industry forward. Craig, do you want to weigh in on some topics that you like to see brought up here in future conversations?
Well, I think we're still scratching the first agenda, right? So I think we just continue on down that road. I mean, recruiting and hiring is going to be an hour-long conversation somewhere as we get into it, right? And there's lots of nuggets to share in there. So I'll be interested to see some of that conversation. We've already started talking a little bit about the communication and knowledge sharing, professional development. So I think we continue with that just a little bit further down the road, and then see where that leads us. I think like Paul said, the right, reaching out to the right people with your willingness to serve on committees that, especially as some of the lifting starts, will be very important. The piece for CAMT, the thing that I didn't realize about CAMT before, and I don't know why, because I've been sitting on the CAMT committee for a number of years now, that that we should push is the fact that CAMT is, as Paul said, CAMT is actually the only certificate program that's ANSI certified in the apartment industry. CAM is not a certified ANSI certified program. Leasing professional, not. CAPS, not. None of that is. CAMT is the only actual accredited. When we talk about accreditation, we're talking about an organization that oversees professional certifications. So for multiple industries. So it's a pretty big deal. And why we don't push it a little harder, I'm not quite sure. But I think that's an important thing to keep discussing, and especially as like I said, as the things move forward, there's some groundswell towards what we're going to do with CAMT, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes in the next couple of years.
Yeah, great points. I'd love to continue the conversation on the national recognized certification for managers. And you're right, we had so much that we're still from the first meeting that we still have on our agenda. And I'm gonna argue with you here, the hiring is not a 1 hour conversation, it's probably like 1 month conversation. We could talk this to death. And in a good way, right? In a way that I think that there's also great things happening out there. They're not just like challenges, but they're opportunities, and there are folks doing amazing things out there, which we'll all love to hear about, right? So we could maybe just embrace some of those practices too, and make our own thing, our recruiting process better. So I look forward to the next one. Hopefully I could see you all on April 10. I'm gonna send a recap email, send a recording of the conversation as soon as I'm uploading it on YouTube, and you will have I'm gonna remove the questions, the topics we already went over the first 3 meetings. So we're gonna start with recruiting and hiring and what's left, and obviously we're going to add as we move along other topics, because we'll never run out of topics here. It's always gonna be just so much to talk about, and
Sounds good.
not enough time. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for the time. Like I said, I'm gonna make a point to put all the resources together, send them all over to you all, and see you all on April 10, hopefully. Take care.